Hi friends, I want to thank you very much for taking the time out of your schedule to tune in once again to my show, Living Fearlessly. I'm your host, Lisa McDonald, with the 365tvnetwork.com. My show, my brand, Living Fearlessly, is all about eradicating getting stuck, getting unstuck from your life, and taking those moments of trepidation and uncertainty and turning shit into gold. So my guest today here is Ron James. Ron James is a very successful realtor. I want to welcome you to my show.
Oh, thank you for having
so
me.
much.
Yes.
And there seems to be some overlap. I'm really into abstracts. I'm really into the message within the message. And so when we talk about real estate, when we talk about realtors, the first thing that conjures up in people's minds is houses, flipping houses, buying, selling. There tends to be, from what I understand from you, a deeper story that's connected to the house. So there's the house of self, and there's the house in terms of property.
Absolutely.
So why don't we start with a little bit to the degree that you're comfortable. And again, this is Living Fearlessly, so I really encourage you to step into it, which I don't think is going to be a problem for you.
That means it's a personal question.
So why don't we talk a little bit about the journey of real estate / how this has impacted your personal life and how you've merged the two, and I would say quite beautifully.
Wow, thank you. Real estate, I've been active in it almost now, coming up March 10th, 35 years.
Wow,
so
congratulations.
It's been a bitch of a mistress. I mean, it's been a wonderful career.
Right.
And I've had the benefit of being a witness and an observer to a lot of different life, different stages of life, etc. And personally, as you move forward to that, the nature of real estate itself, not all my colleagues are now on multiple marriages,
Right.
but it tends to lend itself that way.
Yeah.
So most recently, that was my situation. That's when you come home and all your stuff is on the lawn.
Wow.
And you kind of go, I think somebody's moving. However, it's a surprise. You know, you have a conversation with somebody in the morning and come back and it's a different conversation in the evening, which led to, a breakdown of marriage at this point. It's not unusual. First marriages at this point, 50%, 60% on the second marriage, 70% on the third marriage.
Is that right?
And that was my third marriage. So
That was your third marriage?
although I ended up with 2 great kids out of it, amazing in-laws
Fantastic.
that are still good friends today. And I got a chance to spend 15 years with a woman at this point who I literally worshipped the ground she walked on.
Beautiful.
Until I didn't.
Right.
Till about a
Fast
couple of years
forward,
ago,
yes, yes.
when I pretty much thought it was going to be a knife fight that was going to be televised somewhere.
365 TV.
Oh yeah, that'll be a whole news segment at this point. Spouses doing spouses, but not the way you think.
All right.
The layers kind of were pulled off on this situation, only to discover that there was, 2 affairs, not mine, my spouse and her 2, the good one and the bad one.
The bad and the ugly.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, not 3. It
Okay,
was
sorry.
just 2.
Yeah, let's get the math straight, Lisa. Good,
yes.
bad, or good, ugly, or bad, ugly. I'll let you figure it out.
I couldn't believe the emotional strain and drain that it goes through it. So you go through Living Fearlessly and you basically get to that wall where you haven't got anything left. You're just like, okay, I'm done. This is, how do you come back from something like this? Well, how we came back, not only as a family, but on my side professionally. 2 years go by. We're cordial at this point, my ex and I, because we have children and we had always had a good parenting routine and regime and could respect that of each other, but really wanted arm's length away from each other.
Understood.
And what I found was my ex, Kathy, had said to me, do you know of somebody who does what you do in real estate in Burlington? And I'm like, no, I'm one of... It was the specialty related to building lots and land and development, etc. So I said, why? And she said, well, my boyfriend's going to sell his house. I said, oh, okay, good for him. I don't know anybody. Anyway, so as we progressed with questions and their questions for me, they said, would you take on the listing?
Wow.
Yes, it's exactly
Wow.
what I said. It's like, wait a minute, a year ago you wanted to hit me with your car. Now you want to give me this listing. Not only that, they needed my assistance to help them with a house in my area, which is Oakville. So it's very surreal. You're waiting for the shoe to drop at any point.
Let me just ask you, Ron, along those lines, did you need to process that before rendering an answer? Did you automatically, instantaneously think of your children and think, well, of course, not comfortable position, but ideally going forward, this is the best way to be peaceful, to be amicable, and to role model that to my children? What was that process of decision making for you?
I wish it was that ethereal. It was really, I'm a get it done kind of person. So you ask me a question and give me a quest, I'm all over it. Like there's no stop, let's think about it, etc. It's move forward, especially when it's something like this that I know very well. I rallied a lot of moving pieces very quickly, so quickly that they basically had pushed back and said, "Whoa, we're not sure," and the timing might be wrong for us, etc. It's kind of like, you asked me, I didn't come to you. So it did have a pause while they decided whether I was a good fit, they could handle it emotionally, etc. So the first time that we went out to look at houses, it's a little weird.
I bet.
So you're there with your boyfriend that you're going to move in with and your ex-husband, who you don't like that much or didn't like that much, or, you know, were the reason that you're not together.
Did you sell quick? Did you sell quick?
No. It was interesting, though, the little thread of conversation after. I'm like, it was weird, but I survived. And my ex typed back, "Yep, us too." Because it's weird.
Yeah.
And then, of course, as you start to kind of go through their requirements, like a good realtor would, you're now as intimate as you can be as a professional in someone's life. How do you like to live? How many bedrooms? What do you need for this? How do you do this? It's a pretty up close and personal, and it's pretty intense as a relationship with your realtor for the 4, 6, 12 weeks you're working with this person. They are a member of the family. They really become intertwined in your family.
May I ask you a question
Sure.
along the way? So in terms of, in most practices, most businesses, there would be, you know, a code of ethics, or there would be what would be considered a conflict of interest. Was there any governing body, any boss or superior that kind of suggested that this is not the arrangement you want to touch?
No, it's real estate. It's a free-for-all. Everybody does whatever the hell they want.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I wish I wasn't kidding. My personal code of ethics when I was brought into the business was, somebody said to me, imagine a judge sitting on your shoulder, governing everything that you do, and on the other shoulder is your mom. So between my mom and a judge, everything that I've ever done in real estate is, if I was standing in a court of law, how would I have explained this?
Interesting.
So that's not everybody's mantra.
No, but
Just
that's,
happens to be mine.
but what a way to keep yourself on the straight and narrow, right? In terms of,
I don't know if it's maybe a lot more money,
right.
but it certainly has maintained my integrity in the
It's a good compass, though. It's a good barometer of how to measure where you want to be. Knowing hindsight 2020, you look back on things and you wonder, can I say I was proud in that moment?
That's a good point, because that was kind of my benchmark working with Kathy and Tim through the process.
We know where you live, Kathy.
Yes, we do.
We're coming to get you.
He's just had. That's not.
No, this is water. This is not vodka. This is not gin. This is water. Cheers, by the way.
Cheers. Yes.
Cheers to new beginnings
Yes. I
and
love
living
this.
fearlessly.
Yes, of course. You know, I think people get to that analysis paralysis. We're so afraid of making little mistakes, big mistakes. And you know what's interesting? I'm not sure the failure is the biggest part of it. It's the witness of the failure. Like, if your kids are learning something new, or you're learning something new, skiing, snowboarding, you've never done it before, you're going to fall. You're going to fall, and you're going to
Absolutely.
look funny falling. And people are going to laugh because you look funny falling. But it's that stigma. We don't want people to laugh at us. We want social acceptance. We don't want to be the clown. Unless you are the clown. And then you've done it on purpose.
Right. It
But-
was contrived.
It is, and I think that's some of the growth I've had from this experience, because you can't help but be reflective of where you were, what the journey looked like, where we ended up, and if we had to bet money with each other 18 months ago, 2 years ago, that would have been the case, I think we would have both left money on the table, because it wouldn't have happened. But it did. And so what did we control? We control the fear? Maybe. We controlled the humility factor, I think, where, as I mentioned, my friends were like, they couldn't believe I was doing this, handling
I bet.
it, this relationship, having, been through me and through the ride of the stigmas that went through that, and me being a wreck, etc. So they were just like, how can you do that? But isn't that the badge of me saying it's okay?
Absolutely.
It was okay to me,
Absolutely.
so it's okay to you.
Well, what I'm going to say to this, Ron, is I love the story. I love how vulnerable you're being. I always talk quite openly and quite candidly, radio, TV, speaking, whatever the gig. I truly, truly believe that people who openly express vulnerability are the strongest people, and in fact the most beautiful people. Because when you talk about relatability, whether it comes from your profession, and of course you're interfacing with the public all the time, what I do for a living, I'm interfacing with the public all the time, and you don't do things strictly for the fact that you want buy-in. Where does natural, authentic buy-in come from? It's how can people identify with you, or how many people are you showing houses to understand the ins and outs and the intricacies of real estate? Not much necessarily. That's why they're seeking you out to help them make informed decisions and choices. However, when you talk about a story like that, that's not something, and I don't know to the degree that you share that with other potential clients who you're walking through a house, like, no matter what you're going through or your circumstances that have put you in a position of being in the market of looking for a house, or, that it's not always, oh, we just got married and we're looking for a house. Oftentimes it's the parting of ways. Oftentimes it's going backwards on the scale of what's out there market-wise, because now there's one income as opposed to two incomes. So I think when you share your stories like that, and still maintaining boundaries and still exercising code of conduct and all of that, but I think to the degree that we can still reveal a little bit about the humanistic side. I don't necessarily need to go into all the details of why or how I can relate to your situation per se, but I want you to know you're not alone. And so what a beautiful story. And I really, this embodies living fearlessly. I want to thank you for sharing that with myself and for the listeners and the viewers. And you've given a lot of pause for thought, because again, when we use, as you cited, the example of your friends and some of the feedback and how people were receptive, non-receptive, judgmental, or, oh my gosh, I can't believe that you were able to step up that way. That's phenomenal. And this is what I'm hoping is what you've had to share with us, very graciously so, resonates with people. So although you may not necessarily be able to identify with real estate or Ron's particular set of circumstances, we all know what it is to feel isolated. We all know what it is to feel like we've had the rug pulled out from underneath us. We all know what it is to have to go through at different stages of our lives an unforeseeable reinvention process. And I think the way that you have navigated, the way that you have stepped up and put your children first and done it so graciously and done it so diplomatically and maturely, I'm hoping, and I'm sure this will resonate with people. So when you're faced with an unforeseen circumstance, totally shatters the image of what you thought your life was and what tomorrow's going to look like and what you envisioned the next year to look like, thinking it's going to be the nuclear, it's going to be what it is, only to see that dissolve and implode and change. There's always a choice within how we choose to navigate. What is the lesson? What is the message? And how do we take that forward going, okay, You know, can't control everything in life,
Mm-hmm.
can't control other people's decision making, whether you're directly or indirectly impacted as a result, unfortunately. That's just what happens to all of us. But I mean, you held true to your integrity, you held true to diplomacy, civility, humility. I just want to say what a stellar example of living fearlessly. And I'm
Thank
so
you.
honored to meet you. And I really can't thank you enough for sharing your story because, I mean, this is still relatively new, correct?
Well, the role of the realtor is new. That only actually just all came to completion in December. So yeah.
So it's still wrong,
Yeah.
right? And December
But-
being holiday time, right? So there's triggers. There's all
Oh,
kinds of
absolutely. Through all that process, obviously, I haven't befriended Tim as my new drinking buddy,
things. Of course not.
but I did send him a note by email, and he was moving towards Kathy. He didn't have to. His house was ideal set up for him, etc. They could have just had to make do, but he moved closer. He moved closer specifically for my children, still in a school district, etc. So the note basically thanked him, just a guy to a guy, gentleman to a gentleman, for showing me the character of who he is by making that decision to honor his new girlfriend, but her family,
Beautiful.
which is my children.
Fantastic.
So yeah.
Wow. So everybody
it was-
pulled it up,
Yeah.
right?
Could it have gone any better? I don't think so.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think so.
Well, the other thing that I'm going to say about your story too, because you did mention that this was your third marriage. So
Yes.
again, there's a huge facet of living fearlessly within that, because without necessarily delving into the circumstances of why the first marriage didn't work, or perhaps why the second marriage didn't work, again, another example of how this embodies living fearlessly is, you know, obviously you're somebody who has a lot of love to give. You're somebody who is trusting and throws it out there to the universe. You know, okay, didn't work out with this person, but that doesn't mean I have to shut myself down and think that I'm not entitled or not,
Yeah.
that's not the right word, worthy or deserving of happiness, right?
Agreed.
And so I think the fact that you've also, because again, as citing the statistics in which you provided, we are in a generation where people are oftentimes on their second or third marriage. And so, you know, unfortunately, the outcome of the third didn't work out. However, from the first to the third, I think, again, living fearlessly, it's like, you know what? I'm not going to let this define me. I'm not going to consider myself a failure who does not deserve happiness in my life just because the first or the second marriage didn't work out. And yet you still left yourself open. You put yourself out there, you left yourself open. You're obviously, and to me that's very indicative of your own level of self-awareness, because you're very tapped into the fact I have these qualities, I have things to share, I have things to offer. There's got to be somebody out there who gets me, that I vibe with. And so based on that, I think that's another element not to be missed by our viewers and our listeners, is if you find yourself in a similar circumstance, and statistically we know many of you who are plugged into living fearlessly here, you are. I myself, and I was talking to Ron about this before we went live, you know, I took 5 years to resolve property matters with my first marriage, only marriage to date, that did not work out. And again, we had, you know, every situation is unique and precarious, and decisions had to be made, although it's drawn out in your life at certain segments gets put on hold and you feel like you're held hostage a little bit by that. But for the betterment of knowing, as we know at this stage in life, 5 years goes fast, 10 years goes fast. And so, you know, do you want to look back upon decision making, even though it was frustrating and it didn't go according to plan, and, you know, being at the mercy of third party, whether it be lawyers or realtors or whatever the case may be? Just know that whatever you decide today, you want to be proud of that going forward, looking back, hindsight 2020. And for what I've done in my acts, and for what you've demonstrated by sharing with us, and quite openly and quite candidly, which I appreciate, because to me that's vulnerability and that's strength. I want to say thank you. And I think you can be very proud of yourself and hold your head high, as I'd like to believe that I can too, as I believe my ex can. But again, it's upwards and onwards.
Mm-hmm.
So what's in the future for you? What else? Like, and it doesn't have to be specific to personal relationship, but in terms of living fearlessly, third marriage behind you, property now settled, being proud of yourself for how that got handled by all parties specifically. What does living fearlessly going forward look like for you, Ron?
I have a very simple mantra, which
Mm-hmm.
is moments and memories.
Mm.
I collect them. So from being a full-on hardcore A-type personality, how you doing? Everybody I can and suckers twice, to somebody who is just so chill.
Uh-huh.
Now, even my friends are like, "Who are you?" It's like, I don't know. I'm just a heck of a lot
I'm
more
the guy
involved.
who knows how to do a tie and
Yeah.
I've got my shoes and my laces match my tie. I mean, you've got some good stuff going on here.
Well, thank you very much.
Absolutely. On the market, perhaps. Maybe you're not ready for that, but
Sure.
but you look great.
Thank you.
More
Thank you.
importantly, how are you feeling?
Well, I see that as a reflection. I think that when I first, this was a change because I used to do my business in a t-shirt and jeans on a motorcycle.
Mm-hmm.
And I lost a piece of business that I didn't think I should have lost.
Mm-hmm.
And dug out some old threads, like suits aren't supposed to be shiny and your tie isn't supposed to be a paddle. And
Right.
but I weathered the storm and all of the jokes and jibing for probably a good 6 weeks before people kind of went, well, I guess he's going to wear that paddle everywhere.
Fantastic.
And it became like, a suit of armor.
Mm-hmm.
It became, as you literally festooned everything that you put together on,
Mm-hmm.
it was like gauntlets, and it was like, the clink, clink, clink of this big metal suit.
Uh-huh.
But as you did that, it became that fearless. It became first the facade to protect you,
Mm-hmm.
and then to expose you.
Wow.
So it's great, and I'm a comment hooer, so I love when people say, "Hey, you look great."
Well, you
So,
do. You
thank you.
absolutely do. In fact, we said that as soon as we greeted you at the door,
Yes, you
right?
did.
We're not just saving it for film. Very
Yes.
first impression.
Thank you.
Awesome. Bingo. So what would you like to say to the listeners in terms of either living fearlessly specific to vulnerability, for somebody who's gone through ordeal after ordeal and adversity, and yet you're still here, very positive, emanating all kinds of great energy, clearly having made the decision, because I believe it's based on choice, to move on
Yes.
with an optimistic, positive, inspiring type outlook. So for people who aren't quite there as of yet, and again, being cognizant of time, because I'd like to give listeners the opportunity to know where
Yep.
they can find you. So how would you address that with listeners and viewers?
I've spoken of hanging on a cliff by fingernails at this point, and feeling the hand shake. You can't hang on anymore. Worse, people below you screaming, "Jump!" and you're like, "You sons of bitches!" And then you have to let go. You have
Right.
no choice. You just relent to it, only to find that you've only fallen a foot.
Yes.
They were yelling to let go because they know it's safe.
Love that.
So I would tell people that living fearlessly, it's a foot off the ground.
Absolutely. And it's putting one foot in front of the other going
Yeah.
forward, right?
That's it.
Always face that way.
Mhm.
One of my favorite expressions or memes that I've seen is, there's a reason why your windshield is bigger than your rear view mirror. Don't look back. You're not
Yeah.
going there anymore.
Yeah.
Absolutely love that. And your story clearly embodies all of that, and for how you choose to live and navigate
thank
and
you.
maneuver your life. So where can people find you? Because you're very interesting, and certainly if you can handle the stress of those kinds of intricate personal details, you can't not sell to anybody under any situation. So where can people find you?
Well, Ron has two N's, so it's RONN James. So if you Google Ron James, you can find me. But the website is ronjames.ca, and that's RONNJAMES. Text cell connection is 289-242-9050. And I'm certainly on Facebook and Instagram if you just type in Ron James with two N's. you'll come across me.
Fantastic. And so are you your own corporation, or are you working for...
We're independent contractors, most realtors are, but we do work under an umbrella, so you would understand things like
Yes.
RE/MAX, etc. Our company is called Stone Mill, so we're also a custom home builder, and we service the Peel-Halton area.
Fantastic. So where's home for you these days now?
Oakville?
Oakville? Starting over?
Actually, in the same house, so I got to stay where we were, and my family had moved out. And from the continuity point of view for my children, man, it couldn't have ended any better.
Beautiful.
They still call that home.
Beautiful. Well, I just want to say it's been an honor and a treat and a pleasure to have you here today. Your story has very much inspired me. You inspire me. No doubt you've inspired the listeners and the viewers here. So I just, and perhaps we welcome you back and find out what's going on for you down the road, business, personal, otherwise, to the degree you wish to share. And you're an open book. I love transparent people. I love people who walk their talk. I love people who step into life fearlessly, which you clearly do, Ron. And for listeners, take the time to play this back, for whatever you're going through in your life. I know we sometimes look at YouTube videos and all kinds of different things to derive inspiration, and it's on the fly, and it's usually while we're multitasking, doing numerous types of activities. But I would really encourage for the value and the content, which I personally got out of this interview with Ron, I would encourage you to take the time for valuing your own life, any decision making that you're on the cusp of having to make. Use the Stellar Man's example of how to do things properly. And yes, everything's unique to each of our own individual circumstances. It's not about spoon feeding people or having people become molds of one another, but this is a really great example of how to handle a very tumultuous, a very sad, difficult, challenging time, and do it with grace, do it with honor, do it with dignity, and do it with integrity. So this is Lisa McDonald, living fearlessly with 365tvnetwork.com. Looking forward to bringing more further stellar guests down the road. Really encourage people to get unstuck. If you have a problem with that, feel free to give me a phone call. You can contact me through my website. I do a lot of mentoring to help people get off the fence in their own life and to eradicate fear. Love and gratitude to all of you. Take care, be well, and thanks again. Much appreciated.